Yeah, what's happening? We back again. Get my screen cleared up. Got a lot of stuff going on at one time. Phone clicking off. Get back on time. Do not disturb. All right, yeah. I'm back. I had that figured out. We back on. How y'all doing today? What is it? Today is Wednesday. Yeah. How y'all living? How y'all feeling? Fanatical L's representative, right? Dog food, radio, TV, whatever you want to call it. We're back again with another installment. Repping my old school hutch, right? Old school hutch uniform, right? Everything, dog food. So what we're gonna talk about today is I don't know if y'all saw the offensive grades that we did for the AFC North. Was going to do a defensive one, and that one's coming. Still working on that one. But on this one, we're going to talk about QBR. And there's a lot of really the whole season, right? Everybody has kind of harbored on the play of Deshaun Watson, quarterback one. He went 4-1, but a lot of people are nitpicking some of the stats. And the whole season, the whole thing has been QBR. And analytics is a big thing in sports now. And I think analytics, to a certain extent, I don't want to say it's ruined sports, because that's probably extreme. I think it has its place. But analytics without its proper context really gets into narrative, right? You can craft a narrative just about any way you want to with some of these analytics, right? And one of the things about journalism used to be you present the facts and that's it. You take your biases out of there. But how journalism has kind of evolved is that now it don't matter what you watch, regular news, political news, sports, they don't just give you the neutral facts and then let you make a determination or talk about the neutral facts and maybe talk about one side or the other. A lot of it is, these are the facts and this is what this means from the facts. You get these talking heads, these pundits that tell you this is what it means. And a lot of times people tend to believe that. So on this, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the 4-1 record. We're going to look at QBR. We're going to look at specifically the Ravens, because that was probably, it wasn't his best total game. I would say it was either the Titans or the Cardinals game, but that was the best half of football that he played. And he did it against the number 1, number 2 defense, wherever you had the Ravens ranked. So we're going to look at every quarterback's QBR versus the Ravens in 2023. We're going to look at their passer rating too, to kind of juxtapose the difference between QBR and passer rating. And then we're going to look at what QBR is. And then we're going to, go from there. So let's pause for a quick commercial break one time, and we'll be right back. All right. So let's get it pulled up here. All right. So what you see right here on your screen, you got week 1 versus Cincy, week 2 Pitt, and so on. QBR versus Cincy was 61.7, clearly the best. Well, I'm sorry, Tennessee 79.1 is the best on this list here, followed by 61.7 with Cincy, and then 55.7 with the Baltimore game. Now you'll notice a couple of passer ratings in the 100s, and Tennessee and Arizona, if you look at what their defensive rankings were for the season, I don't think either of them were ranked higher than 20. Let's take a look real quick. The Titans were 16, ranked 16 in total defense. And so I was wrong there. And the Cardinals were 31. So you see here that I mean, 107.5. If we're just talking about passing, that ain't really nothing to sneeze at. But look at the QBR. It's 36.7. So we're gonna take a look at that, right? And then Tennessee, like we say, they were 16. Let's see what they were against the pass. Tennessee was 18 against the pass, and what were they against the run? 13 against the run. So wasn't a terrible defense, middle of the road defense for sure. But let's take a look at what we know what Baltimore was. Baltimore was the number 1 defense. I don't know what they were going into week 10, but they certainly were probably top 3, top 5. Pittsburgh was the number 6 defense on the season. Right. And I imagine that you watch these games. I watch these games. I'm not trying to sit here and make it seem like he was out here hooping, putting in work all 5 games, or that they look pretty. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of the national talking heads would have you believe that you saw nothing, that he looked pedestrian, that he looked horrible. Well, that's an extreme take. I was at the Tennessee game. He played, I mean, obviously you see it. He played well in that game. Arizona, again, the QBR says 36.7. So let's take a look real quick. Let's take a look at what QBR is. Can we assign this? All right. Total QBR, not to be confused with passer rating. Proprietary statistic created by ESPN in 2011 to measure the performance of quarterbacks in American football. According to ESPN, QBR incorporates all of a quarterback's contributions to winning. Okay, remember that's the key word, winning, including how he impacts the game on passes, rushes, turnovers, and penalties. Since QBR is built from the play level, it accounts for a team's level of success or failure. Let's read that again. It accounts for a team's level of success or failure on every play to provide the proper context, then allocates credit to the quarterback and his teammates to produce a clearer measure of quarterback efficiency. So it's not just a quarterback stat. Let's get that out the way right now. QBR is not just a quarterback stat. That's what the definition tells you. It accounts for team success. It accounts for play-by-play basis, and it attempts to, give you an understanding of play-by-play from a team concept. How did this quarterback perform? Whereas passer rating is really just about completions, touchdowns, interceptions, things of that nature. ESPN claims that it created QBR to be a more meaningful alternative to the traditional passer rating. All right. And let's see, they never released the complete formulas, resulting in criticism. Okay, which is what we're doing. We're doing a little bit of criticizing. All right. History and development tells you who came up with it, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's go to the next screenshot here. All right. This kind of gets into the math of it. Value of each play. Again, we really not going to go into the expected points. You got to do some math on that. But here in the third paragraph, plays that occur in trash time are discounted by as much as 30%. Trash time is measured based on the leverage of each play, which is primarily a function of score time and field position. And the paragraph above that, meant to read that, deeper throws give a higher share of credit to the QB, while screen passes give relatively less credit to the QB and more to the receiver. So again, Tom Brady did a lot of dinking and dunking at one point in his career. So he may not have had a higher QBR certain seasons because of that. You're rewarded for airing it out. We're starting to see NFL offenses want to get into more of that, air raid type of offense where we just slinging it down the field, which is, again, why you see running backs kind of being phased out. But we talked about that. All right. After each play, expected points, blah, blah, blah. talks about the scale. So it's kind of just telling you, again, it allocates certain weight to certain plays, and the QB gets graded based on how deep the throw was and a couple of other things. Let's go to the next one. Let's see. Okay, we already showed that one. No, we haven't showed this one. Okay, it's mixing my screenshots up. All right, let's see. All right, here we go. According to ESPN, QBR is a more complete and meaningful alternative to the passer rating. We'll go to the second paragraph here. The QBR calculation accounts for several meaningful statistics that are not included in passer rating, such as throwing distance, sacks, fumbles, design runs, and scrambles. QBR also makes adjustments for situational context with EPA, a dynamic statistic that is meant to signify expected points added per play. So I think that the screenshot I showed before should have came after this one. But anyway, it's telling you right there that the difference between it and the passer rating is that it is accounting for a lot more, right? Throwing distance, sacks, fumbles, all of that. Passer rating doesn't account for none of that. All right. So when you get into an example of total QBR, again, it's kind of breaking down and distance, the weight of the play, different things like that. But here's something that to bring it all home. This is why I'm showing all of this. Conceptualizing the detailed total QBR puts in can be explained through the 2015 NFC wildcard game between the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Redskins. Aaron Rodgers of the Packers completed 21 of 36 passes for 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, which computes to a 93.5 passer rating. Kirk Cousins of the Redskins completed 29 of 46 passes for 329 yards with 1 touchdown and 0 interceptions, computing a 91.7 passer rating. Observing these statistics, one is likely to conclude that Cousins and Rodgers had similar success. Again, 93.5 to 91.7. Say similar success, and that it was likely a close game. However, the Packers won 35-18, and much of the reason for that can be attributed to Rodgers' overall play, not just his passing numbers. Traditional passer statistics omit the rest of the impact that these quarterbacks made. Cousins also took 6 sacks, had 3 fumbles, 1 loss, 2 pre-snap penalties on Washington's offense. Rodgers, on the other hand, took only 1 sack, did not fumble, and drew a number of defensive penalties to keep drives alive. Rodgers manufactured 5 scoring drives, posted an 82.4 total QBR. Cousins' errors resulted in a total QBR of just 58.9. So the 93.5 and 91.7 was the passer rating. Their QBRs were a little different. So this is supposed to explain that, well, Rodgers played a better game. Okay. That's what they're saying. That's the main difference that you want to keep in mind for QBR. All right, let's go back to our graphic here. So you got QBR against Baltimore. All right. We got passer rating on the right side. So where it says rating, that's passer rating. QBR is the column in the middle. CJ Stroud, 32. Joe Burrow, 68.3. Gardner Minshew, 54.7. DTR, 22. Kenny Pickett, 46.4. Ryan Tannehill, 19. Jared Goff, 14.4. And Josh Dobbs, 35.9. The numbers vary tremendously there. Joe Burrow is clearly had the better game of all of these quarterbacks on this particular list here in week 2. Now, I believe that the only person that won a game is Gardner Minshew. Did they lose? I don't think they lost to Detroit. Gardner Minshew. Let's pull it up real quick. They lost to Gardner Minshew, and they lost to Kenny Pickett. Now, we know that Kenny Pickett isn't what the Steelers thought he was. That's why he got traded. And I'm not really in Steeler circles, so I don't know if he got flack for beating Baltimore with a 46.4 QBR, 88.5 passer rating, though. I don't know if he got the same amount of flack that Watson got for beating the same vaunted Baltimore defense as Gardner Minshew and Kenny Pickett did. Let's remember those numbers: 54.7, 46.4. Let's just double check, make sure nobody else won during that stretch. They did not. Let's take it to the next one. Okay, this is the next list here. Geno Smith, 12.1. You got Deshaun Watson, 55.7. Joe Burrow, now again, Burrow got hurt in that game, and then wish you got Browning came in, but I left Burrow on there. He started the game. 42.6. He had 100 passer rating, though. Herbert, 50.9. Stafford, 72.3. That game went into overtime, but I think the Ravens still won. Trevor Lawrence, 49.7. Brock Purdy, 7.1. I don't follow the 49er circles, but I don't know if Purdy got the same flack for a 7.1 QBR in a blowout loss to the Ravens. I don't think that was the national narrative, if you will. And you got Tua, 43. I think the Dolphins got blown out, and I didn't include Week 18 because that was a meaningless game, and they rested a lot of their starters. Okay, so if we look at all of the quarterbacks that faced Baltimore, Stafford had the highest QBR with 72.3. Next on the list, let's go back. I believe it was Joe Burrow with 68.3. And it's either between Gardner Minshew or Deshaun Watson. Let's see, 54.7, 55.7. So the third best QBR of week 1 through week 17 against one of the top defenses in the league the whole season. Deshaun Watson is on that list. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting nobody. 72.3, 68.3. Let's go back one more time. 55.7. That was the third best performance against the Ravens all season based on QBR. Now, passer rating, we're not really getting into passer rating, and I'm not trying to craft no narrative either way, because if you look at the passer rating, let's look at his passer rating one time. We was on that slide already. 74.8. That's middle of the road. That's middle of the road. Nothing to really talk about there, right? Stafford had a 103. I watched that game. Stafford was doing his thing. So he's probably not going to be top 3 if you factor in passer rating. But remember, QBR is supposed to take into account. Let's go back to that definition. Let's go back one time. Let's hide this. Where we at? It's hard to keep up with all my stuff. QBR takes into account throwing distance, sacks, fumbles, design runs, and scrambles. All of that is factored in to QBR, not just completions, not just interceptions, not just completions, interceptions, touchdowns. That's what I was missing. All right, so let's go back to the list. Okay. Top 3. Joe Burrow lost. Okay, Joe Burrow lost. Let's keep it 100. You don't get no trophies for winning, or I'm sorry, for having a high QBR and losing. You get no trophies for that, right? Gardner Minshew, Kenny Pickett all had a lower QBR and was the quarterback of the team that beat the Ravens. Let's take it to the next list. Deshaun Watson. They smoked everybody else on this list with the exception of the Rams. So I really don't understand if you really supposed to be about football like that. Like if you just watch it casually, then I don't really know if you should make claims about players' performance, whoever it is, whether it's your team or another team, if you watch it casually. If you consider yourself an expert, and again, I'm not by any means an expert, but if you consider yourself an expert, I'm talking about people that are on the national media. You would think that an expert would be required to break down the stats without bias and just show what it is. Brock Purdy, 7.1. Now, we know he went to the Super Bowl. We understand that. And we're going to give respect for that. And it's just one game. Everybody has a bad game. We understand that. But to say, let's go back to Watson. But to say a quarterback that went 4-1 in the games that he started had the third best QBR against the number one defense or number two, wherever you have them ranked, that defense was that way the whole season. He did it with, they say, with a torn shoulder and a high ankle sprain. 14 for 14 in the second half. Again, let's go back to QBR because there's a piece in there. We haven't read it yet, but there's a piece in there that I want to read to you. Let me find it one time. Let me see. Trying to see because it doesn't reward for clutch, but it's something else. Oh, here it is. Opponent adjustment. This is what I wanted to read. More credit is given with tougher defenses and vice versa. More credit, more weight per play is given for tougher defenses, a quarterback that goes against tougher defenses than it is for weaker defenses. Okay? So with that being said, somebody has to help me understand how Deshaun Watson, let's pull the stats. And I wish I should have put it on a graphic because I knew I was going to show this. So my apologies. I should have had this on a graphic so you can see it. But I'm going to read you the box score, right? Now, Deshaun Watson had a QBR of 55.7. Lamar Jackson had a QBR of 50, right? Deshaun Watson went 20 of 34, 213 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks for loss of 18 yards. Lamar Jackson went 13 of 23, 223 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. They both threw a pick six. Jackson took 3 sacks for minus 23 yards. Watson had a higher passer rating. His passer rating was 74.8. Jackson's was 67.8. And Watson had the higher QBR, 55.7 to 50. Now, to their credit, both of these teams, this was probably the 1 and 2 defense at the time going into this game. This was probably 1 and 2. So we can look at that, and I'm not using this to try to say that Deshaun Watson outplayed Lamar Jackson, even though in this game you could say he did. I'm not trying to put down Lamar Jackson to prop up Deshaun Watson. I'm not trying to do that. But what I'm saying is, if the QBR is given for going against tougher defenses, I'm kind of shocked at that Watson only is 5 points higher than him at QBR. Now, it could be because the defenses were 1 and 2, maybe they were weighted similarly. But see, what QBR doesn't take, they say it takes into account down and distance and time and all of that. But if Lamar Jackson threw a pick six in the fourth quarter, right, and then Deshaun Watson leads the game-winning drive, I would think that those points would be weighted higher. But again, I don't know how they compute this, right? So the thing that I'm calling out is the false narrative that the Baltimore performance it was just a half of football. Let's pull this back up right here. Well, against the teams that didn't have top 10 defenses, the Tennessee Titans and the Arizona Cardinals, he posted above 100 passer rating. Again, the QBR was a little different in the Arizona game, but again, that's team performance. If he got a delay of game penalty, okay, that's going to make the QBR go down, right? I imagine if his receivers were dropping passes, does that make his QBR go down? I don't know. It doesn't say that, but I don't really know. So how can you have 107.5 passer rating, have a QBR 36.7, and they shut the Cardinals out? That was a shutout game. That's what I'm saying. These stats, you got to actually dig into the stats and get some context. One other thing I want to show. Okay, it's not on here. Give me 1 second. Should have been on here. I want to do another quarterback comparison. I actually have a graphic for it. Because, again, the QBR thing just kind of had me going down the rabbit hole trying to just get more information on this. Now, there is a controversy with it, and it involves, here it is right here. So we'll talk about a little criticism of QBR. Further criticism of QBR was brought, and this is on Wikipedia, so you can go check this out. Further criticism of all these screenshots of QBR was brought about when, before some tinkering, so I imagine they changed it after this, before some tinkering with the equation of QBR, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Charlie Batch had the greatest individual game ever evaluated by QBR with a score of 99.9 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on September 26, 2010. He threw for 186 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He also ran for 5 times, 26 yards. Statistics that helped Bat's QBR rise was that he was not sacked, did not fumble, and that he completed 70.6% of his passes, one of which he spiked into the ground to stop the clock. Okay. Now let's go to the next. We're going to skip this category or this paragraph here. I want to talk about the Tim Tebow thing. Further controversy erupted when Total QBR System gave the Denver Broncos' Tim Tebow a higher rating than the Green Bay Packers' Aaron Rodgers in their respective Week 5 contests in 2011, noting that Rodgers completed 26 of 39 passes for 396 yards and 2 touchdowns in a win over the Falcons, while Tebow completed 4 of 10 passes for 79 yards and a touchdown, 6 rushes for 38 yards and a touchdown, and a loss to the Chargers. In a more recent example, a game played on September 24th, 2017, Alex Smith of the Chiefs received an inexplicable QBR of 7.8, half as much as the equally bad QBR of 16.1 for his counterpart, Phillip Rivers, even though Smith had a higher completion rate, 16 of 21 versus 20 of 40, and a better average per completion, 7.8 yards versus 5.9, a far superior TD to interception ratio, 2-0 versus 0-3, and won the game handily, 24-10. Now, here's one that really caught my eye. I had to go back and look at this. It's a Super Bowl with the Patriots and the Falcons. And everybody talks about a bad half, the bad half. Again, I want to go back to the bad half that Deshaun Watson had against the Ravens. Everybody talks about that bad half. Well, if you watch this Super Bowl, Tom Brady had a horrible half in the first half. Pick 6, and just didn't play well. The offense came out kind of flat. And I believe they went halftime down 21-3. And, obviously they were down 28-3 with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, something like that. And I said, well, what were the QBRs for Brady and Ryan? Because if it's weighted on defense, and we know that the Falcons, their strength that season was offense, let's actually look at what their rating was defensively real quick. What was that? 20? Was that 20? Yeah, that was 2016. Let's see what the Falcons were ranked defensively that season. They were the 27th ranked defense. So maybe that explains this. However, Matt Ryan took a horrible sack, and he really had a mediocre second half. Um, and look at these numbers: 466 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. They both took 5 sacks. They both took 5 sacks. But yet, Matt Ryan still had a higher QBR in a Super Bowl that he lost than Tom Brady, who came back down 28-3, converted two 2-point conversions to win the game. So, again, I think QBR has its place. And maybe if you marry it to passer rating, maybe they both have their place, because I'm sure they both have some blind spots. But for the general consensus to be that Deshaun Watson in going 4-1 isn't indicative, because again, that's a fourth of the season. Again, if we're talking about analytics, if you scale that across a 16 or 18 game, we'll just use a 16 game season because I know they got that extra game, but let's just scale it over a 16 game season. That would be what? 8, 12, would it be 12-3, 12-4, something like that? So 12-4, you're a game behind Baltimore. And maybe with Deshaun Watson, maybe you still in play for the division. So for people to make it seem like, and again, let me reiterate, I watched the games. He didn't play all that well against the Steelers. I'm not saying that he was lights out. I'm not saying that. But if we look at Mahomes for the season, he wasn't lights out all season. But they still found a way to get it done. So real quick, and last, just to wrap up, let's take a look at what Mahomes did against Baltimore on the road in the AFC Championship game. And I apologize, I don't have the graphic. I'm going to have to read this to you. Let's go to the box score. Mahomes had a 91.1 QBR, by far the best QBR against the vaunted Ravens defense the whole season. 30 of 39, 241 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception, 2 sacks for a loss of 11 yards. Lamar Jackson had a 41.6 QBR. 20 of 37, 272 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I don't follow the Baltimore circles, but I don't know that they're saying that Lamar Jackson isn't the answer because of his QBR in the AFC Championship game. And I'm sure some people would say, well, if Watson gets us to the AFC Championship game, then maybe we don't, we don't say that. Maybe we applaud that. Okay, maybe. We'll see it if and when it happens. But again, the stats have to have context. Who was the leader in QBR? It was Brock Purdy this season. Brock Purdy was 1, Dak Prescott was 2, Josh Allen was 3, Lamar Jackson was 4, and Justin Herbert was 5. Do you know where Patrick Mahomes was in QBR? 63.1 for the whole season. CJ Stroud was 57.5. So I don't want to hear nothing next season if Deshaun Watson is, in that 60th range in QBR and they're saying he's not playing well. Not really trying to hear that. And lastly, I know I said that before, but lastly, let's take a look at single best QBR leaders. Tom Brady, 88.2. That's in the undefeated regular season year. Um, you got Tom Brady on here, what, twice? You got a David Gerard on there. You got Drew Brees on there twice. You got Aaron Rodgers on there twice. Peyton Manning on there twice. Again, that's kind of surprising to me that in the top 10, Brady, Manning, and Rodgers don't really, that almost should be the list every time. Right? Let's take it to what is this, season by season QBR leaders. Tom Brady's on there 2 times. Peyton Manning is on there 4 times. You got a Tony Romo sighting, you got a Carson Wentz sighting, you got a Matt Ryan sighting. I mean, it's not no exact science, is what I'm trying to illustrate. Pat Mahomes on there twice. So, I mean, I hope this was informative. Again, the main piece going in the next season is health. It's like Pippen in Game 6 when he got hurt and he pulled his back when they was playing the Jazz in '98. Him being out there was better than him being in the locker room. Even if he was only 50% of himself, him being out there as a decoy was better than him being in the locker room not being able to go. The second half of the Ravens game shows you that even if he's banged up, just being out there gives you a chance to win. Because if he can do that against the top 5 defense, come on. You telling me that you wouldn't feel confident with that against a 20th ranked defense or a 25th ranked defense or a 12th ranked defense or whatever? I mean, it gives you a chance. So going into 2024, the main thing should be trying to keep everybody healthy. And if you got some guys that's banged up and they can go, it gives you a better chance to win than them not being out there. And kudos to Kevin Stefanski and that whole coaching staff for being able to weather the storm with a litany of injuries and go 11-6. And the hope is that your core players and a large portion of the roster don't have to succumb to injuries, where you can go into the playoffs healthy and see what kind of noise you can make. So where we at? Where we at on this? 30 minutes or something? I don't know where we are on time. We almost at 40 minutes. So appreciate your patience. Apologize if I bounced around. Apologize for not having all my graphics there. But yeah, man. I mean, it was a successful season given everything that happened. But it's just not intellectually honest, or we'll just call it, it's biased journalism to sit here and say he sucked, or to sit here and say that, man, we don't know if he's got anything left. It's not really fair to say, because when we look at QBR, there's only one person that dominated the Ravens, and that was Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. At least that's what the QBR says. There's only one person that did that. The other 3 quarterbacks, with the QB1 for the Browns being in that conversation, there was only 3. There's a top 3, and he's in it. And I think only 2 of the 3 won. No, is he the only one that won? Let's one more time. Yeah, he's the only one that won. Stafford lost with a 72.3. Burrow lost with a 68.3. And Watson won with a 55.7. That's third on the list, unless my dyslexia is acting up. So, yeah, man, there needs to be a more collective optimism. I know people might not like the contract and they don't like other things, and whatever. That's you have the right to feel that way. That's whatever. But again, if you're talking about football in between the lines, if you're talking about performance, if you're talking about what actually happened, like I say, I watched the games just like y'all did. And I don't know that any of these games on this list that you're looking at was an A+. The Titans game might have been an A minus. The Cardinals game might have been an A minus to an A. You know, that's probably the closest one you could give it to an A plus. Well, if you factor in QBR, the Titans game is probably the only game statistically that's an A plus. But I watched the game. I felt like he was balling more against the Cardinals, but the Cardinals, the defense wasn't that high. So if we just factor in the best defense that he played the best against the whole game, it was the Titans. If we're talking about inconsistency, but then getting it together, it was the Ravens. So, you know, I don't know what people are seeing. You know, because I definitely think a healthy Deshaun Watson, a healthy Chubb, you know, healthy Cooper. They brought in Jerry Jeudy and Joku. I mean, they loaded up. They're loaded, and that's all you can ask for. You got to have your weapons. If you go into war, you can't go out there with empty clips. You can't go out there with no grenades, no bazookas, no tanks. You got to have all that. So that'll do it, man, for this one. Appreciate y'all again. Fanatical L's Network. You know, we got a lot of great content. You got the Burning River Browns podcast. You got Dawg Pound South. You got the East Bank show. I believe I'm saying that right. So yeah, you know, we're gonna try to keep it real, you know, real playerish for y'all, and you know, during this off-season time. And I don't know how many Sundays we got to go, but it's April, so we getting close. We getting close. 5 more months, you know. But that'll do it again. Dog Food, radio, TV, all that. Fanatical L's. Appreciate y'all. Be on the lookout for the pre-draft AFC North grades. You know, similar to what we did for the offense. And I'm sure that we'll be doing a joint show with the whole gang sometime later this week. So we'll catch y'all on the next one.